Shankara, or Shankaracharya as he is also known, was born in South India about 1200 years ago and is considered the most important teacher in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta, the tradition based on the non-dual wisdom first taught by the rishis, the sages of ancient India. Shankara's importance is largely due to his clear and systematic unfoldment of Advaita Vedanta in his many scholarly commentaries and brilliant texts. One of those texts is Atma BODHA. We can't be sure if Atma BODHA was actually written by Shankara or by another great teacher in his lineage. But this text is traditionally attributed to Shankara himself. Atma BODHA is a simple work that uses many helpful metaphors to make these teachings more accessible. But the fact is, unless students are adequately prepared by the practice of meditation, karma yoga, and other disciplines, they might not be able to grasp the lofty truths expressed here. Therefore, Shankara begins, for those who are purified by austerities, who are contemplative, free from desire, and seeking enlightenment, Atma Bodha has been composed. Shankara didn't want anyone to assume that enlightenment could be gained merely through meditation, karma yoga, and other practices. Enlightenment ultimately requires Atma Bodha, the knowledge or personal discovery of your true divine nature, the inner self, Atma. As opposed to other spiritual practices, self-knowledge is the direct means for enlightenment. Just as fire is the direct means for cooking. Without self-knowledge, enlightenment is impossible. To cook rice, a pot and some water are necessary. But it's fire that actually does the cooking. In the same way, to become enlightened, meditation and other practices are necessary, but it is self-knowledge, Atma Bodha, that actually removes ignorance and enables you to realize your true nature. As Shankara explains, other spiritual practices can coexist with ignorance. So they can't remove ignorance. Self-knowledge alone removes ignorance. Like light removes darkness. Suppose you were adopted and didn't know who your birth mother was. It's absurd to think that meditation or other practices could somehow remove your ignorance about her identity. So, how can meditation or other practices remove ignorance about your true identity, Atma, without self-knowledge, Atma Bodha? Because the true self, Atma, is covered by ignorance, when that ignorance is removed, Atma reveals itself, like the sun reveals itself when clouds drift away. The sun always shines, even when it's hidden behind clouds. In the same way, Atma always shines as the light of awareness, the light of consciousness, your consciousness, the consciousness by which you know all your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. When clouds drift away, the sun's brilliant orb is revealed. And when ignorance is removed, the true nature of your consciousness is revealed. But there's a problem here. If self-knowledge is required to reveal your true nature, then do you have to constantly think about Atma to remain enlightened? No, because
Ajnana kalusham jivam,
a person tainted by ignorance
jnanabhyasad vinirmalam,
is purified when ignorance vanishes due to self-knowledge.
kritva jnanam swayam nashyet,
Then that self-knowledge itself vanishes,
chalam katakarenuvat,
like the powder used to purify water. In ancient times, dirty water was sometimes purified by adding the finely ground powder of kataka nuts. Impurities suspended in the water would stick to the powder and settle to the bottom of the vessel, leaving pure water behind. This metaphor represents how Vedantic inquiry into the true nature of Atma removes the impurity of ignorance. When that process of self-inquiry successfully removes ignorance and comes to an end, then the mind falls silent, and pure consciousness alone remains. Now, Shankara shifts his attention from the inner self to the world outside. If the world is as real as Atma, then Atma could be subject to suffering due to worldly events. But if the world is not as real as Atma,
samsara swapnatulyo hi,
the world is like a dream,
ragadveshadi shankulaha,
filled with pleasant and unpleasant experiences.
swakale satyavad bhati,
It seems real
prabodhe satya sadbhave,
until you wake up and discover that it's not. In Vedanta, real is defined as that which always exists, that which doesn't come and go. Dreams come and go. Even the world comes and goes. The universe began with the Big Bang 14 billion years ago, and eventually it'll cease to exist. So the world is not absolutely real. It's not as real as the uncreated eternal self, Atma.
tavat satyam jagat bhati,
The world seems absolutely real,
shuktika rajatam yata,
like a glittering seashell seems like a piece of silver,
yavanna jnayate brahma,
until Brahman is discovered
sarvadishthanamadvayam,
as the world's underlying non-dual reality. It's easy to mistake a shiny shell for a piece of silver. Such a mistake happens when you don't recognize the true nature of the shell. So too, it's easy to think that the world is absolutely real when you don't recognize its underlying reality, Brahman.
satchidatmanyanusyute,
Created from the sentient underlying reality,
nitye vishnau prakalpitaha,
eternal and all-pervasive,
vyakta Yattayo vividha sarva
are all things that exist,
atake katakadivat
like a bracelet made from gold. Just like gold is the underlying reality because of which this bracelet exists, Brahman is the underlying reality because of which the world exists. This bracelet is nothing but gold, and the world is nothing but Brahman. This is the teaching of Advaita, non-duality. Now, Shankara turns his attention to superimposition, or adhyasa. If your true nature as Atma is Satchit Ananda, limitless, all-pervasive, eternal consciousness, then why do you consider yourself a man or woman of flesh and bone? According to Vedanta, this takes place due to adhyasa. Characteristics that actually belong to your body and mind, like gender, age, and intelligence, are superimposed on Atma. They're falsely attributed to pure consciousness.
Yatakasho hrishikesho
Like the space in many pots,
nanopadhigato vibhu
all-pervasive consciousness dwells in many bodies
tadbhedat bhinnavad bhati
and seems divided by them.
tannashe kevalo bhavet.
In the absence of pots or bodies, space and consciousness remain undivided. This famous metaphor of how the same all-pervasive space is simultaneously present in many pots is crucial for understanding the oneness of Atma, the limitless consciousness that pervades the universe and is simultaneously manifest in countless living beings.
Nanopadivashadeva
The attributes of bodies,
jati varnashramadayah
like caste, color, status, etc.,
atmanyaropitasто ye
are superimposed on Atma,
rasavarnadibhedavat
like different tastes and colors are superimposed on water. Water continues to be H2O even when sugar or coloring is added. In the same way, Atma continues to be pure consciousness even when it's associated with your body and mind. Atma is utterly unaffected by any and all attributes of that body and mind. In the next 3 verses, Shankara describes your 3 bodies, 3 aspects of your individual existence with which Atma is associated. Your gross or physical body, known as Sthula Sharira, your subtle body, or Sukshma Sharira, and your causal body, Karana Sharira. First, the physical body.
panchikrita mahabhuta
Composed of physical elements
sambhavam karma sanchitam
and born due to karma,
shariram sukha dukkhanam
is the physical body where pleasure and pain
bhogayatanam uchyate.
are experienced. The age, gender, and other qualities of your body get superimposed on Atma, pure consciousness, which has no age or gender. Next, the subtle body.
Pancha prana mano buddhi
Having 5 vital forces, mind, intellect,
dashendriya samanvitam
and 10 faculties,
apanchikrita bhutotham
made of subtle elements,
sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam
The subtle body is the means for experience. You superimpose the sharpness of your intellect and the happiness of your mind on Atma, pure consciousness. You superimpose the strength or weakness of your prana on Atma. And you similarly superimpose the strength or weakness of your five senses and your powers of action on Atma, which is utterly free from all these attributes. Finally, Shankara describes the so-called Karana Sharira, causal body, which really isn't a body at all.
Anadya vidya nirvachya,
Beginningless, indescribable ignorance
karanopadiruchyate,
is said to be the causal body,
upaditritaya dhanyam,
distinct from these three bodies,
atmanam avadharaye,
is your inner self, Atma, which you should discern. Ignorance of Atma is said to be your causal body, since it causes your subtle body to get reborn in a new physical body. This ignorance, too, gets superimposed on Atma. The three bodies Shankara described here are closely related to the five sheaths or koshas that he refers to next.
panchakoshadi yogena,
In the presence of the five sheaths,
tattanmaya iva stitaha,
Atma seems to acquire their natures,
shuddhatma neelavastradi,
like in the presence of a blue cloth,
yogena spatiko yata,
a clear crystal appears blue. Just like the blueness of the cloth can be falsely attributed to this clear crystal, in the same way, the qualities of your body and mind can be falsely attributed to pure consciousness, Atma. This false attribution or superimposition is to be removed with the help of Vedanta's teachings.
vapustushadibih koshait,
Like rice kernels covered by husk,
yuktam yuktyabaghātatah,
by threshing it with reason,
atmanamantaram shuddham,
Atma, the pure inner self,
vivincyatandulam yata,
should be separated. Atma is figuratively covered by your three bodies, or five sheaths. To discover its true nature, Atma must be separated or distinguished from these coverings through the vigorous application of Vedanta's teachings. Now, Shankara explains the true nature of Atma as all-pervasive, unchanging consciousness.
sada sarvagato bhyatma,
Even though Atma is all-pervasive,
na sarvatravabhasate,
it doesn't appear everywhere.
buddhavevavabhasita,
In the mind alone it shines,
swacheshu pradibhimbhavat,
like a reflection on a shiny surface. The sun shines on the whole earth, but it's reflected only where there's a reflective surface, like an ocean, lake, or river. In a similar way, all-pervasive consciousness becomes manifest wherever there's a suitable reflecting medium, a medium like your mind.
dehendriya mano buddhi,
Separate from your body, senses, mind, intellect,
prakritibhyo vilakshanam,
and world, independent,
tadvritti sakshinam vidyat
as the witness of them all.
atmanam rajavat sada.
Like a king, Atma should be known thus. Ministers perform their duties and run the kingdom in the king's royal presence. The king merely watches them. So too, in the presence of the conscious self, Atma, your body, mind, and senses perform their various activities. Yet, your consciousness itself is not engaged in these activities. It remains as a passive witness. Here, you might object. Whenever I do something, like walking, talking, or thinking, it certainly seems like my consciousness is fully engaged in that activity. Shankara explains,
Vyapruteshvindriyeshvatma
when your body, mind, and senses are active,
vyapari va vivekinam
Atma also seems to be active due to ignorance.
drishyate bhreshu dhavatsu
Like when clouds drift across the moon.
dhavan iva yata shashi.
It's the moon that seems to move. Sometimes clouds give rise to the illusion that the moon is somehow moving. It's the proximity of the moon and clouds that gives rise to this illusion. In the same way, it's the proximity of consciousness to your body and mind that gives rise to the illusion that your consciousness itself is active, when in fact, consciousness remains as a passive observer, like the king in the prior verse.
Atma chaitanyamashritya
With the help of the conscious self, Atma,
dehendriyamanodhiyaha
your body, mind, and senses
swakriyartheshu vartante
engage in various activities,
suryalokam yata janaha
like people engage in activities with the help of sunlight. The sun doesn't actively participate in worldly activities. It merely facilitates those activities. In the same way, Atma doesn't participate in the activities of your body, mind, and senses. It merely facilitates those activities. Now, Shankara explains in detail how various qualities and activities of your mind are superimposed on pure consciousness and falsely attributed to Atma.
dehendriya gunan karman
The qualities and activities of your body, mind, and senses
yamale satchidatmani
are attributed to pure consciousness, Atma,
adyasyantya vivekena
due to ignorance.
gagane nilatadivat
Like blueness is falsely attributed to space. You experience a blue sky, but space is colorless. Blueness can be superimposed on space. In the same way, the qualities and activities of your body, mind, and senses can be superimposed on Atma. But, like space has no shape or color, the conscious self, Atma, has no qualities or activities.
Ajñānān mānasopādhe
Due to ignorance, your minds,
kartrtvādīni chātmani
qualities, and activities are attributed to Atma.
kalpyante mbugate chandre
Like when the moon is reflected in water,
chalanādīyatāṃ bhasaha
the water's ripples are attributed to the moon. In this famous example, the bucket represents your physical body, water represents your mind, and the moon represents the conscious self, Atma. Ripples in the water seem to affect the moon, when in fact the moon in the sky shines unchanged. In the same way, ripples in your mind, your thoughts, emotions, and sensations seem to affect your consciousness, when in fact consciousness remains completely unchanged.
Ragecha sukha dukkhadi
Desire, pleasure, pain, etc.
buddhau satyam pravartate
are experienced when your mind is active,
sushuptau nasti tannashe
but cease to exist in dreamless sleep when your mind is inactive.
tasmat buddhestu natmanah.
Therefore, they belong to your mind, not to the conscious self, Atma. In dreamless sleep, your consciousness remains completely present. It observes or witnesses the total absence of activity in your mind. It's like being in a perfectly dark room with your eyes wide open. You can see, but there's nothing to be seen. So too, in deep sleep, you're conscious, but there's nothing to be conscious of. If pleasure and pain truly belong to the conscious self, Atma, then you'd experience them even in deep sleep.
Prakashorkasya to yasya
The sun's nature is brightness. Water's nature
shaityam agniryatoshnata
is coolness, and fire's nature is hotness.
swabhava satchidananda.
So too, Atma's nature is existence, consciousness, fullness,
Nitya nirmalatatmanah.
changelessness, and purity. But if your true nature is limitless, unchanging consciousness, as this verse says, why do you usually feel like a limited individual person who lives in a world of objects? Shankara explains,
Atmanat satchidamshascha
when Atma's pure existence and consciousness
buddhir vrittiriti dvayam
are united with your mind's activities,
samyojya cha vivekena
then, due to ignorance,
janamiti pravartate.
you experience being an individual person. It's the combination of unchanging consciousness with the changing activities of your mind that gives rise to the experience of being an individual person, a jiva.
Atmano vikriya nasti
Atma is unchanging consciousness,
buddhir bodho na jatpiti
and your mind is itself insentient.
jiva sarvamalam jnatva
Considering yourself an individual person, a jiva,
jnata drashteti muhyati.
you wrongly assume that you see and know objects. Even though your true nature is limitless, unchanging consciousness, due to identification with your body and mind, you take yourself to be a limited person, a jiva.
Rajju sarpavadatmanam
Like misidentifying a rope as a snake,
jivam jnatva bhayam vahid.
misidentifying Atma as a limited person causes fear.
Naham jiva paratmeti
If you know, I am Atma, not a jiva,
ज्ञातं चेन्निर्भयो भवेत्
then you will have no fear. Vedanta famously uses the example of a harmless rope in a shadowy place, mistaken for a deadly snake, to illustrate the consequences of ignorance. This verse shows how the teachings of Vedanta are meant to free you from fear and suffering, not to merely impart philosophical wisdom. Atma is constantly present in every experience, present as the consciousness by which the activities of your mind and senses are known. Yet, the true nature of that very consciousness remains concealed when it's hidden behind the so-called veil of ignorance. Shankara explains,
आत्मावभासयत्येको
Atma alone reveals
बुद्ध्यादीनीन्द्रियाण्यपि
the activities of your mind and senses.
दीपो घटादिवत् स्वात्मा
Like a shining lamp reveals a clay pot.
जडैस्तैर्नावभास्यते
But your mind and senses, being insentient, cannot reveal Atma. Light reveals objects, and that which doesn't emit light can reveal nothing. Your mind and senses are inherently inert. They have no consciousness of their own. Therefore, your mind and senses themselves can reveal nothing without the light of consciousness.
स्वबोधे नान्यबोधे च
No other consciousness is required to reveal
बोधरूपतयात्मनः
the self-revealing conscious self, Atma.
न दीपस्यान्यदीपे च
Like no other lamp is required
यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने
to see a lamp shining by itself. Atma is self-revealing, like a shining lamp. The purpose of Vedanta is not to reveal Atma, but to remove your ignorance of Atma's true nature, to eliminate your wrong conclusions and identification with your body and mind.
निषिध्य निखिलोपाधीन्
After negating your body, mind, and senses,
नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः
with the teaching, neti, neti, I am not all of this.
विद्यादैक्यमहावाक्यैर्
Using the Mahavakyas, you should realize the oneness
जीवात्मपरमात्मनोः
of your consciousness and Brahman. Mahavakyas are scriptural statements like Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. Such statements reveal the complete identity of the conscious self, Atma, and Brahman, the underlying reality, because of which the world exists. The Mahavakyas express the highest truth of Vedanta, that consciousness itself is the very fabric of existence, the reality called Brahman.
आविद्यकं शरीरादि
Your body, mind, and senses, born of ignorance,
दृश्यं बुद्बुदवत्क्षरम्
are as impermanent as bubbles in water.
एतद्विलक्षणं विद्यात्
You should know you are completely independent of them,
अहं ब्रह्मेति निर्मलम्
thinking, I am pure Brahman. To realize the highest truth, that your consciousness is identical to Brahman, is not a matter of grasping an intellectual concept or understanding a philosophical principle. It's a matter of direct personal discovery, to recognize something utterly remarkable about yourself that had previously been hidden from your view. To support the personal discovery or recognition of this highest truth, Shankara now gives several examples of Vedantic contemplation that are to be practiced along with meditation.
Dehanyatpaname janma.
Because I am not my body, I have no birth,
Jara karshalayadayaha.
old age, decay, or death.
Shabdadi vishayai sango.
I have no association with worldly objects.
Nirindriyataya nacha.
Because I am independent of my senses. It's your senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch that interact with worldly objects, not consciousness itself.
Amanastvaname dukkha.
Because I am not my mind, I have no suffering,
Ragat veshabhayadayaha.
desire, aversion, or fear.
Aprano hyamana shubhra.
Independent of my prana and mind, I am pure consciousness.
Ityadi shruti shashana.
As the scriptures say, your mind is subject to sadness. Your prana, vital force, is subject to weakness. But your unchanging consciousness is utterly unaffected by them. The next contemplations require no explanation.
Nirguno nishkriyo nityo.
Attribute-free, motionless, eternal,
Nirvikalpo niranjanaha.
thought-free, stainless,
Nirvikaro nirakaro.
unchanging and formless.
Nityamuktosmi nirmalaha.
I am eternally free and pure.
Ahamakashavat sarvam.
I am like space,
Bahirantargatochyutaha.
inside and outside of everything, immutable,
Sada sarva samasiddho.
always content, perfect,
Nissango nirmaloschalaha.
detached, pure, and immovable.
Nityashuddha vimuktaikam.
Eternally pure and free,
Akandānandamadvayam.
undivided fullness, non-dual,
Satyam jnanamanantam yat.
real, conscious, and limitless.
Param brahmāhameva tat.
I am indeed that supreme Brahman.
Evam nirantarabhyasta.
Through the constant practice of these contemplations,
Brahmaivasmiti vasana.
the conviction I am Brahman
Haratya vidya vikshepan.
removes ignorance and identification.
Roga nivarasayanam.
Like medicine removes illness. Contemplations like these are essential to help you realize the truths taught by Vedanta in a direct personal manner, not as abstract ideas or intellectual concepts. This practice is crucial to assimilate or internalize these lofty teachings. Shankara now gives further instructions for meditation.
रिक्तदेशहासीनो
seated in a solitary place,
विरागो विजितेन्द्रियः
free from desire, undistracted.
भावयेदेकमात्मानम्
You should meditate on Atma being one
तमनन्तमनन्यधीः
and limitless with unswerving attention.
आत्मन्येवाखिलं दृश्यम्
Merging the entire world into Atma
प्रविलाप्य धिया सुधीः
through contemplation,
भावयेदेकमात्मानम्
you should meditate on Atma being one
निर्मलाकाशवत् सदा
and eternally pure like space. When the process of inquiry, explained in the first part of this text, is accompanied by these Vedantic contemplations, you can become firmly established or deeply rooted in Atma Bodha, self-knowledge. In the next part of this text, Shankara describes the fruits of such firmly established, deeply rooted self-knowledge.
रूपवर्णादिकं सर्वम्
Giving up all identification with the body,
विहाय परमार्थवित्
an enlightened person
परिपूर्णं चिदानन्द
whose true nature is limitless consciousness
स्वरूपेणावतिष्ठते
abides in that nature. First, you have to give up false identification with your body and mind and realize that their limitations and defects don't belong to you. Only then can you abide in your true nature as limitless consciousness.
ज्ञातृज्ञानज्ञेयभेदः
Distinctions between knower, knowledge, and known
परेणात्मनि विद्यते
are absent in the true self, Atma,
चिदानन्दैकरूपत्वात्
because its nature is limitless, non-dual consciousness.
दीप्यते स्वयमेव तत्
It alone shines. All knowledge takes place in your mind, but Atma is completely separate from your mind as the unchanging consciousness that illumines all its activities, all its thoughts, emotions, and perceptions.
एवमात्मारणौ ध्यान
On Atma, like on a fireboard,
मथने सततं कृते
constant drilling with the spindle of meditation
उदितावगतिर्ज्वाल
kindles the flame of knowledge
सर्वाज्ञानेन्धनं दहेत्
and burns up the fuel of ignorance. This beautiful metaphor is based on using a hand drill to start a fire. Persistent drilling with a wooden spindle produces friction and flames. In the same way, the persistent practice of meditation and contemplation produces firmly established, deeply rooted knowledge of Atma.
अरुणेनेव बोधेन
Like at sunrise, the dawn of knowledge
पूर्वं सन्तमसे हृते
removes the darkness of ignorance.
ततः विर्भवेदात्मा
Then Atma reveals
स्वयमेवांशुमानिव
its own nature, like the shining sun. The ultimate truth, that consciousness is identical to Brahman, the fabric of existence, remains shrouded in dark ignorance until the dawn of self-knowledge. Atma Bodha.
Atma tu satatam prapto
Even though Atma is always present,
Vyapraptavada vidyaya
it seems absent due to ignorance.
Tannashe praptavad bhati
When ignorance is removed, it seems like Atma is found,
Swakantha bharanam yata
like the gold chain on one's neck. A traditional story tells of a woman who looked everywhere for her missing gold chain. She eventually discovered that it had been hanging around her neck the whole time. She found what she already possessed. Such is the realization of Atma.
Sthano purushavad bhrantya
Like a tree stump is mistaken for a thief,
Krita brahmani jivata
Brahman is mistaken for a limited person, Jiva.
Jivasya tatvike rupe
When the Jiva's true nature is discovered,
Tasmin drishte nivartate
the mistake disappears. In the twilight, a tree stump might look like a menacing person and make you feel afraid or threatened. So too, you might feel threatened by the problems and defects of your body and mind, until you properly discern your true nature as Atma.
Tattvasvaroopanubhavad
After realizing your true nature,
Utpannam jnanamanjasa
knowledge arises immediately
Aham mameti cha jnanam
and removes ignorance like I and mine.
Badhate digbramadivat
Like the sun removes confusion about directions. When you see the sun in the morning or evening, you immediately know which way is east or west. And when you discover your true nature, you immediately know that your feelings of individuality and possessiveness are completely baseless.
Samyak vijnanavan yogi
Enlightened yogis see
Swatmanyevakilam jagat
the entire world in themselves
Ekam cha sarvamatmanam
and see everything as non-separate from Atma
Ikshate jnana chakshusha
with the eye of knowledge. Those who are enlightened experience duality like everyone else, but they aren't misled by their experiences. They know the underlying reality because of which everything exists to be non-dual Brahman, like clay is the underlying reality because of which many pots exist.
Atmaivedam jagat sarvam
This entire world is Atma alone.
Atmanonyanna vidyate
Nothing exists other than Atma.
Mrudo yadvad ghatadini
Like pots are nothing but clay.
Swatmanam sarvamikshati
Thus everything is seen as oneself. The Vedantic vision of oneness is to realize the underlying non-dual fabric of existence, because of which the world of duality exists, the reality called Atma or Brahman. Now, Shankara describes the nature and behavior of an enlightened person.
Jivan muktastu tad vidvan
By knowing Brahman, Enlightened persons
पूर्वोपाधिगुणांस् त्यजेत्
cease to identify with their bodies and minds
सच्चिदानन्दरूपत्वात्
because their true nature is limitless, unchanging consciousness.
भवेद् भ्रमरकीतवत्
They become Brahman, like larvae become wasps. In ancient pre-scientific times, it was believed that wasp larvae were transformed into wasps due to their continual experience of wasps in the nest. This metaphor suggests how continual contemplation on Brahman makes you figuratively become Brahman by being firmly established in your true nature as Brahman.
तीर्त्वा मोहार्णवं हत्वा
Crossing the ocean of delusion,
रागद्वेषादिराक्षसान्
destroying the demons of attraction and aversion.
योगी शान्तिसमायुक्त
Yogis, endowed with peace,
आत्मा रामो विराजते
revel in themselves. This verse echoes the story of the Ramayana. Lord Rama crossed the ocean to reach Lanka, where he killed the demons Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and was finally reunited with his wife Sita. In this metaphor, Sita represents Atma.
बाह्या नित्यसुखासक्तिम्
Free from attachment to worldly pleasures,
इत्त्वात्मसुखनिर्वृतः
content with the fullness of Atma,
घटस्थदीपवत् स्वस्थः
like a lamp shining inside a pot.
स्वान्तरेव प्रकाशते
The enlightened ones shine, established in themselves. You can't see a lamp shining in an enclosed space. So too, you can't tell if someone is enlightened or not by observing from outside. That person alone knows.
उपादिष्टोऽपि तद्धर्मैः
Even though embodied by their bodies,
अलिप्तो व्योमवन्मुनिः
the enlightened are unaffected like space.
सर्वविन्मूढवत्तिष्ठेत्
Even though enlightened, they act like fools,
असक्तो वायुवच्चरेत्
moving about without attachment like the wind. Because the enlightened feel completely content and fulfilled, they have no plans, no goals, no agenda whatsoever. They simply respond appropriately to each situations that arise according to their remaining karma.
उपाधिविलयाद् विष्णौ
When their bodies die,
निर्विशेषं विषेन्मुनिः
the enlightened merge into all-pervasive consciousness,
जले जलं वियद्व्योम्नि
like water into water, like space into space,
तेजस्तेजसि वायता
or like fire into fire. When water is poured into the ocean, it becomes non-separate from the ocean. When a pot is broken, the space inside merges with the space outside. And in ancient times, when a flame is extinguished, it was believed to merge into the universal element, fire. In each case, the existence of water, space, and fire continues, undiminished and unabated, while its separateness comes to an end. Such it is for the enlightened at the time of death. Now, as he nears the end of the text, Shankara praises knowledge of Brahman.
Yallabhana paro labho,
Gaining which nothing remains to be attained.
Yat sukhana param sukham,
No other happiness,
Yajnana na param jnanam,
no other knowledge.
Tad brahmetyavadharaye.
That Brahman should be realized. Enlightenment is considered the greatest human achievement, the highest goal. It's a state of utter contentment in which nothing else remains to be accomplished.
Yad drishtva na param drishyam,
Seeing which nothing remains to be seen.
Yad bhutva na punarbhavaha,
Becoming which there is no rebirth.
Yajñātvā na param jñēyam,
Knowing which nothing remains to be known.
Tat brahmetyavadharaye.
That Brahman should be realized. Scriptures say that when the fire of knowledge destroys ignorance, all karmas accumulated in this life and past lives are also burnt up by that fire of knowledge. And in the absence of any remaining karmas, there is no possibility of being reborn again.
Tiryagodvamadav purnam,
Extending endlessly around, above and below.
Satchidanandamadvayam,
Limitless, unchanging consciousness, non-dual,
Anantam nityamekam yat,
infinite, eternal, and one.
Tat brahmetyavadharaye.
That Brahman should be realized. This section of the text sounds like a hymn or song, with its repetition of the refrain, Tad Brahma iti avadharayet. That Brahman should be realized.
Atadvyavrittirupena,
Through a process of negation,
Vedantairlakshyate dvayam,
Vedanta teaches that Brahman is non-dual,
Akhandanandamekam yat,
one limitless fullness.
Tat brahmetyavadharaye.
That Brahman should be realized. Vedanta's process of negation is apparent in its famous dictum, neti, neti, not this, not this. When all wrong conclusions are negated, Brahman alone remains.
Akhandanandarupasya,
Of Brahman's limitless fullness,
Tasyanandalavashritaha,
only a tiny portion,
Brahmadyastaratam yena,
is enjoyed by gods like Brahma,
Bhavantyanandinokhilaha,
who thereby become fulfilled. In Hindu mythology, the gods who dwell in heaven enjoy magnificent palaces, delightful dance and music, as well as sumptuous meals. But all those heavenly enjoyments are but a tiny fraction of the fullness of Brahman.
Tadyuktamakilam vastu,
Brahman is present in all objects
Vyavaharastadhanvitaha,
and in all activities.
Tasmat sarvagatam brahma,
Therefore, Brahman is all-pervasive,
Kshire sarpirivakhile,
like the fat in whole milk. The fat extracted from milk to make ghee is present in and through the milk. In a similar way, Brahman is present in and through the universe.
Ananvastulamahrasvam.
Neither tiny nor large, neither short
Adhirgamajamavyayam.
or long, unborn, undecaying,
Arupagunavarnakyam.
without form, quality, or color.
Tat brahmyetyavadharayet.
That Brahman should be realized. Each word used here to describe Brahman is negative in nature. These words negate or exclude everything that's not Brahman. Since Brahman is beyond time and space, beyond words and concepts, this language of negation is central to the teachings of Vedanta.
Yad bhasa bhasyate kadi.
By which light the sun and moon shine,
Bhasyar yattu na bhasyate.
but which shines without the help of any other light,
Yena sarvamidam bhati.
by which the entire world is illumined.
Tat brahmyetyavadharayet.
That Brahman should be realized. Light represents consciousness here. Due to consciousness, you know what happens, both inside your mind and outside in the world. Yet, to know your own consciousness, no other consciousness is needed because your consciousness is self-revealing.
Swayamantarbahirvyapya.
Pervading the world and extending beyond,
Bhasayannakilam jagat.
illumining the entire universe.
Brahma prakashate vanhi.
Brahman shines like a glowing,
Prataptayasa pindavat.
red-hot lump of iron. Even though iron itself doesn't produce light, when it's heated in a furnace and becomes red-hot, it glows brightly. This metaphor shows how living creatures made of inert flesh and bone become sentient, awareful beings due to the presence of consciousness shining within them.
Jagat vilakshanam brahma.
Brahman is other than the universe,
Brahmanonyanna kinchana.
but nothing exists other than Brahman.
Brahmanyad bhati chenmitya.
If something other than Brahman seems to exist,
Yata marumarichika.
then it is false, like a mirage. This verse can seem confusing, so consider this. Clay is other than a pot, but a pot is nothing but clay. Clay is the underlying reality because of which these pots exist. And yet, clay is completely independent of the pots. In the same way, Brahman is the underlying reality because of which the universe exists. And yet, Brahman is completely independent of the universe.
Drishyate shruyate yad yad.
All that is seen or heard
Brahmanonyanna tad bhavet.
is nothing but Brahman.
Tattvajnanascha tad brahma.
With knowledge, Brahman is realized to be identical
Satchidanandamadvayam.
to your limitless, unchanging, non-dual consciousness. The last half of this verse expresses the highest teaching of Vedanta, Tattvam Asi, that thou art. Tat refers to Brahman, And Tvam refers to you, to your consciousness, the consciousness that's actually uncreated, unchanging, and all-pervasive as the very fabric of existence. In the final verses of the text, Shankara returns to the topic of enlightenment.
Sarvagam Satchidatmanam,
The all-pervasive, unchanging, conscious self
Jnana Chakshurnirikshate,
is discovered with the eye of wisdom.
Ajnana Chakshurneksheta,
One without the eye of wisdom cannot discover it.
Bhasvantam Bhanumandhavat,
Like the blind cannot see the sun. Even though the sun is self-revealing, it can't be seen by the blind. So too, even though the conscious self, Atma, is self-revealing, its true nature can't be recognized by the ignorant.
Shravanadibiruddipta,
Through the practice of Vedanta,
Jnanagni paritapitaha,
you become engulfed by the blazing fire of knowledge
Jivas sarvamalan muktaha,
and freed from all impurities,
Swarnavadyotate swayam,
shining like gold. Gold is melted in a furnace to remove all its impurities. So too, a person is figuratively scorched by the fire of knowledge to remove the impurity of ignorance.
Hridakashodito hyatma,
Atma abides in your heart
bodhabhanustamopahrit,
as the light of consciousness, destroying ignorance,
sarvavyapi sarvadhari,
pervading the universe, sustaining all,
bhati bhasayate khilam,
and illumining everything. Consciousness dwells in your heart, so to speak, illumining the activities of your mind. That same consciousness simultaneously pervades the universe, illumining the minds of all. The final verse of this text is composed in a longer meter.
Digdesha kaladhyanapeksha sarvagam,
Atma pervades all directions, times, and places,
Sitadihrinitya sukam niranjanam,
removing suffering and bestowing pure, eternal joy.
Yah swatmatirtam bhajate vinishkriyaha,
By worshiping at this holy pilgrimage place inside yourself,
sa sarvavid sarvagato mrito bhavet,
you become enlightened, limitless, and immortal. Pilgrims travel vast distances to arrive at holy places in the Himalayas or along the banks of sacred rivers. But the enlightened don't need to travel anywhere to reach the sacred reality that dwells within, the conscious self, Atma. With this verse, Atma Bodha comes to an end. In this brief text, Shankara imparted teachings that can lead you to personally discover what the ancient sages discovered, and to become firmly established in that sacred wisdom.